Hello out there, football fans. Welcome to another edition of Booty and Baribeau. He's Josh Booty. I'm Rachel Baribeau, and we were just doing our pre-show notes, pre-podcast notes, and we were talking about the fact, Josh, that it's already week 5. We laughed about this last week. Blink, you'll miss it, but it is already week 5. We're starting to get into real conference play, real meaningful games. And we had just some real doozies this past weekend.
I love the word doozy. That's a Southern term for sure on this SEC show. But yeah, the football season goes by so fast. It seems like whether it's Friday Night Lights and it's a high school season or college or the NFL, it just seems to go much faster than the other sports, and it's so much fun to watch these games. So we had a great week last week and can't wait for some big games this week. It just continues to roll.
You and I were texting each other throughout the weekend when some of these games were going on, and I think it was probably around the Tennessee-Florida game, certainly the Arkansas A&M game. But I remember tweeting right after the Tennessee-Florida game, and it was when Florida scored the touchdown at the end of the game on 4th and 14. And I tweeted, oh my God, I love football. Like, it was in all capital letters, Josh. And I had no dog in the hunt. It was just such an amazing ending and to a really storied rivalry that's lost a little bit of its luster the past couple of years, but what an amazing ending.
Yeah, it was, the game had a great storyline. Tennessee's a team that everybody thinks is much improved. Butch Jones had only lost the game at Oklahoma that they probably should have won it, earlier in the season, and for them to go to Florida having lost 10 in a row in the rivalry series it was a big game for Tennessee, and for them to come out of there giving up that big 4th down and 14 play where it looked like things were real slim for Florida, and to come out of there with a loss was a big hit to Tennessee. And they can still come back and have a nice season and put together something well. But just the fact that in the way that they lost that ball game was a big hit to Butch Jones and really a huge lift to McElwain. If you look at it from the other side of the football and the other side of things, for McElwain to get that win and to beat Tennessee, he said in his press conference afterwards, "My guys just aren't used to losing to Tennessee." He knows he's trying to prepare his team and to believe in that culture that he's trying to develop, and that's to win and not even think about losing games like that. And they just pulled out a good one.
They sure did. And I was listening to some Tennessee fans, reading some blogs, listening to Tennessee fans. I love taking the pulse of fans. It's why we do what we do here at Gridiron Now, and it's for the fans. And one Tennessee fan wrote a blog post, and it went like this, Josh. It said, the real question to ask as Tennessee fans, and it's a hard one, is can we come back to relevance? Like that hold that we had on the SEC, the national relevance, can we get back? And he said, before Butch Jones was there and when he was first there, it was we didn't have the talent, but we have a good coach. And and the blog went on to then ask, well, now we have the talent, and now we're questioning Butch Jones. And so he's definitely taking a lot of heat, Josh.
He's taking a lot of heat. I don't think he's really on the hot seat. I wouldn't say the hot seat, but I think that people are just going to watch every move that they make, especially in the second half or later in the ball game, because they found a way to lose twice now early in the season on games that they probably should have won. So people are going to start to pay attention to the way that they're playing at the end of ball games. Are they finishing? How are they prepared for those types of situations? And as a football coach, I think that's where Saban and Urban Meyer and some of these greats have really made their stake, in the game, or became the coaches that they are, is that they know how to finish, and that's what they preach all the time, is finishing strong. And Butch Jones, he's probably a fabulous coach. I've never been around the guy, but he's got to find a way to finish strong. As a staff, they've got to finish strong in their game preparation and the way that they handle situations from the press box down to the field and getting it into the players, into their minds and their hearts, and just the way that they do everything. So it's a real challenge for them to bounce back this week. They have another big game this week. Arkansas comes to their house. They should win that game. They'll probably be favored against an Arkansas team that hadn't looked real good throughout the season. So, it's just another great matchup for them to have a chance to show everybody who they want to become.
I wrote down in my notes as I'm watching that game, I think there was some trickeration there on the part of Mike DeBoard and also Butch Jones. It was like a running back jump pass. Like it was like reminiscent of something Tim Tebow has done in the past. And not only that, Josh, we talk about, and everybody's questioning Butch Jones. And there were timeouts called by both coaches in that game in which you go, oh, what? But I have to ask you, because you're a former quarterback, about the quarterback play of Will Grier. I mean, this kid, when it was all on the line, when everybody had counted them out, when everybody, it's 4th and 14, right? It's the last heave, the last chance. He grew up. I saw a young man grow up. There was no backup. There was no backup option. Treon Harris is suspended. And, when it was on, was he perfect? Absolutely not. But when it counted, he came through.
He did. He played a very good ball game. If you look at what they did on third down, they really struggled on third down in that game. But on fourth down, they converted 5 out of 5. And that's what everybody's been talking about, is their conversion of fourth downs in that ball game and how key it was for the Gators to even be in the game and be in that situation to give themselves a chance, to convert a 4th and 14. They threw a dig route in. He threw a nice ball in there on 4th and 14, and the receiver made a wonderful play to cut back out to the outside. And that's one of the things we were talking about on Tennessee with the defense and the way that the style of play that they played that last play there. I mean, for them not to hem him in is crazy. He ran an in route and then got back to the outside, make a beautiful cut, and went down the sideline. But for Tennessee not to hem him in on 4th and 14, you don't see that happen in the NFL. And that's what Butch and his staff has to get. They have to get those finer details into those players and get them knowing the situations of the game. And that's one thing that they can do better at. And Florida, was able to, win the ball game because of that lack of preparation probably on the defensive side of the ball for the Volunteers. So I do blame that a little bit on Butch Jones, yes. You
look at Jim McElwain, as you mentioned, and this is definitely a seminal moment. This is definitely a building block for him. This is definitely a foundational building win, if you will, as he moves forward. Were they supposed to win? Maybe in a lot of people's eyes. But both of these teams have had their issues. He's a first-year coach. What I found really interesting was their offensive line. This is a patchwork offensive line. A lot of people said, the quarterbacks are going to be running for their lives preseason. And what was he going to work with? And offensively, they were short on numbers. They just didn't have a full load. And what they were able to do in that game in protecting Grier and the job they were able to do was just pretty fantastic.
Yeah, you're right. I think Florida did a great job of getting their guys ready to play in that game because they everybody thought Tennessee was a stronger team, and for Florida to come out of last week with a win was just huge for the program. And now they go, they play Ole Miss this week, and Ole Miss is on such a high from that game against Alabama 2 weeks ago. They're undefeated. They're ranked number 3 in the country. So Florida has a chance to make another statement this week. And so I think McElwain and his troops are going to be super fired up to try to knock off an Ole Miss team that is going to be probably a 7-point favorite.
All right, Josh, up on the plains, Mississippi State and Auburn on Saturday evening, and they start Sean White. And I was just about to tweet. I had the characters, just about push send. What poise, what moxie this young man showed on his first drive, and right in the red zone, he throws the pick. Now listen, that doesn't take away from the moxie or the drive that he showed on the play. It was a young-minded, mistake. It was a young man's mistake for sure, and especially a costly one in the red zone. They didn't have any success there in the red zone, certainly with touchdowns. But, what did you think about him? I saw where he put on Instagram, hey, this is just the beginning. Give us time. We're building something here. What was your assessment of the youngster there in Jordan-Hare?
he's giving them hope, which is great. I'm glad you noticed that. In the red zone, he throws a pick in the red zone to start the game, and a kid like that's gonna struggle some. You would think every time a freshman or a redshirt freshman gets an opportunity to play, unless they're on a team that's so much better than the team they're playing, they're gonna have some rough goes and some battles throughout their games, especially in our first start. So it was a big game just for him to get his feet wet. But everything happens faster in the red zone. Mississippi State was blitzing the heck out of him. I watched a lot of film on the game after the game. I watched a little bit of the highlights, and I saw that they were bringing a lot of pressure. And Mississippi State knows what they're doing. Any team with a freshman quarterback where the offensive line is banged up or they hadn't been doing very well on offense, they're going to bring a lot of heat and a lot of pressure and make that kid really feel it. And I think that's what he did in that first drive was he felt the pressure. And really, Auburn really never really got going in the game because they didn't put up points. They did get into the red zone a few times. They kicked a lot of field goals in the ball game, but Mississippi State was going to apply pressure to the freshmen. We all knew that. Yeah,
with Manny Diaz, he certainly likes to do that. A guy that's made his trip all the way out to Texas and then back there for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I think defensively, it's interesting to me with this Auburn team. I never really questioned them offensively, and I don't think a lot of people did preseason. But you look at what they've been able to do defensively the past couple of games. Will Muschamp gets upset, irate, Coach Boom, crazy face, right? You don't want to be in front of him. You know him well. I know him. He demoted some kids. He moved kids around. He shook up the secondary. But one guy they're missing, and they have not played the same since they've had him, is Carl Lawson. And this is a guy, since that first half against Louisville, he's never really been the same. Last year, he has the knee injury. He goes out. They announced it last year at SEC Media Days. This year, it's a hip injury. According to reports, Josh, he was trying to tell people as early as a week or so ago around the facility, hey, I'm okay. I'm walking without my crutches. I'm okay. He kept trying to push himself. And apparently Gus Malzahn has said that the injury is worse than he was letting on and that they originally thought. For as beautiful as this game is, you've got guys like a Carl Lawson, the second year in a row, he sits out, and it's heartbreaking for the kid. And Coach Muschamp said that. Listen, it's hard for this to watch this kid because football makes him go. Football is his love, and it's his passion. So you got a situation like this where the defense is completely different without pressure from a guy like Carl Lawson, and it completely changes the makeup. So as beautiful as football is, it's also heartbreaking because there are kids like this all over the country, but particularly at Auburn that can't work for his team, and it's hard.
Yeah, it's tough. Anytime you deal with injuries and setbacks, and how when is the right time for you to come back. He's a game changer. Lawson is a game changer on defense. He could change the outcome of drives. He can change the outcome of plays. He can give the opposition negative plays because he plays up front and he can apply such pressure. He helps that helps the defensive backs on the back end be able to create some opportunities, create turnovers, interceptions because of he can just create so much pressure up front. So to lose a guy like that, on your defense before the season or in some of these key games is big for any college team. He's an NFL type guy. So you take an NFL player off of a college team, and now you're a different group on defense or offense or whatever position that guy plays. So if you lose a Kimdichie, who's at Ole Miss, or you lose a Lawson, or if LSU lost to Fournette, or Georgia loses Chubb, the teams would not be the same. It's like that in college because there's so much difference between that first tier guy, that first round guy talent, and then his backup usually at that level. So it just plays a big role. But I hate to see a kid not be able to play a full season. So hopefully he'll have a chance to come back and play. But last year we saw Ole Miss lose at Auburn. Treadwell, they lost the game, and Treadwell got hurt going into the end zone. I felt so bad for the kid because it really ruined Ole Miss's chances last year to really do something big, and Treadwell's such a great player, so I hate to see the injury stuff. Yeah,
you hate it, and the bright spot for Coach Muschamp and the Auburn defense is that they did play better. There were more sound fundamentals. They were wrapping up tackles. I think he talked about the loafing, and half-ass playing that happened the week before against LSU and trying to tackle Fournette, just reaching out your arm, right, and just kind of saying, "Oh, I can't bring him down anyway." So he shook it up, and so by many accounts, and my account as well, I saw a lot more heart, hustle, and drive from that defense, and you got to take little victories like that if you're Auburn going into the season.
You got to build on those. Effort is everything. You can teach a team. You can teach a team how to do, or you can teach a team responsibility. You can teach them discipline on defense. You can teach them what to do, how to get there. But then the effort's got to be there. And that I think was a big problem for Auburn early in the season because they turned the ball over. They weren't scoring on offense. They were putting their defense in bad situations the entire ball game, and it was like they were just on their heels emotionally, physically, mentally. And so, the shakeup and with Sean White at least moving the ball, they're down. Even if they moved it into the red zone several times and didn't get touchdowns, they moved the ball. They kept their defense off the field. They could go and talk about, there's so many little things in the course of a game. They can go over there on the bench and get together and talk about what's happening on offense, against themselves, and vice versa. As a unit, you get some of that time during the game to get coached up, and if your offense is on the field 3 and out or turning the ball over real quick, the defense, what they got to do, they got to go run their asses back out there and play ball again. And so, it's just a huge game-changing momentum type shifts in the course of a ball game. Though, if you're not playing well, then the other side, with one side of the ball, the other side of the ball is going to suffer for the team.
Josh, I have a Vince Lombardi book sitting on my coffee table. My mom gave it to me. I got the best mom ever. And so I try to live by his isms, like Lombardi isms. But the one thing that you just said that I totally resonates with me is I teach young female sportscasters. I coach them. And I'll tell them, I can teach you all day long how to do this, but I can't teach hustle. I can't teach drive. I can't teach hunger. You either want it or you don't. And the best ones that I have out there that I coach chase me, won't let me go, say, "Coach, I got to talk to you." Hey, and I tell them that. And the ones that don't want it, they just wither away and fade away. And that's a good thing because this industry would chew them up and spit them out to dry. So I know it's the same thing in football.
It is. You want to get the most out of the most. You want to have the most talent and get the most out of the player. If you get the least with the most, then you're behind the 8 ball. I don't care if you got a guy that looks like we call it the all-airport team. If you walk through the airport, you look like a super stud, but you can't get anything out of him on Saturday or Sunday. That guy makes the all-airport team, but he doesn't make the all-conference team. You want guys that'll make the all-conference team, and that's guys with heart and that effort. We didn't see Auburn play with much effort versus LSU, and they just really looked downtrodden. But they came back. They played a decent game last week. They showed some heart, showed some life. And hopefully they'll start getting some wins. But I just like Gus Malzahn so much. But we'll see what happens with Auburn because they're not scoring any points right now.
All right. So speaking of the all-conference team, I said this on Sirius XM College Sports Nation last night. I had a caller call in from Georgia and ask about the Bulldogs. I feel like this is the most complete team that I have seen from Mark Richt in a long time. Jeremy Pruitt's defense, his linebackers, the offensive line. I think they call themselves the Misfits. Grayson Lambert the past 2 weeks, I think it's like 45 of 50. He has hit his stride. And more importantly, Josh, please speak to this. I covered him at Virginia when I was an ACC sideline reporter. And I don't think he felt like he was that good. Whether it was the system he was in or whatever it was, I think his own personal ceiling was not that high. And whatever's happened to him at Georgia, and it's almost a rebirth, if you will. But I feel like now, in interviewing him after the Vanderbilt game, talking to him, and that Grayson Lambert versus the Grayson Lambert I covered at Virginia, it almost feels like he feels like his ceiling is higher. Personally, he believes in himself more, and he's hit his stride. And this feels like a very dangerous, complete team. Now, we know this game coming in. We'll talk about it later on in the week. First time that Alabama's been an underdog since 2009 against Florida in the SEC Championship. It's going to be a very dangerous game. But I feel really good about this Georgia Bulldog team.
Yeah, both teams need this win really bad. And for Bama, like you mentioned it, the underdog thing, 72 games, I think, without being a favorite. And so, this is a much different environment. Their back's against the wall. They're going on the road. They're showing up at Georgia on a mission. And And they didn't play a great game against ULM. They did on defense. Their offense still looks a little bit sloppy, and hopefully Bama can get it right, because I want this to be one of those epic matchup showdowns that we're going to see next week. But going back to Grayson Lambert, his ceiling is high. The guy is 6'5". He's completing every ball that he's thrown this year, almost 80 to 90%. I mean, that's leading the FBS by a big time margin. I mean, the way that they're playing. But if you look at the reasons why he's doing it, and the change in what you said, how he looked at Virginia, and now how he looks on the field at Georgia, is he's got an amazing running game. He's got amazing receivers. Mark Richt's a great offensive guy. They're playing great on defense. They haven't really played any super tough games yet. So you take all that and put it into a box and go, that's kind of why he's looked like a Christmas gift to the state of Georgia. I mean, so he's playing great football. There's no doubt about it. He has a chance to really put his name on the map Saturday against Bama. If he can come out of that and play against a good Bama team and get a win, then now Grayson Lambert, somebody that we should all look at as maybe even a Heisman contender for sure.
If you're not following him on Twitter, you should be. Josh Booty 10. I'm at Rachel Baribeau. It's right here in the Gridiron Now link as well. But Josh will be tweeting from the game. I'll be tweeting from the game, post-game as well. We're going to be doing a show in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, together later on in the week from this epic matchup. I hope there's no blackout. That's my hope, is that the Georgia team and the fans don't do a blackout, because history does not bode well for that.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun atmosphere. I mean, this is what college football is all about. And at Georgia, they've been chomping on the bits to when they had a chance to go at Bama again a few years ago in the SEC Championship. They felt like they let one slide. They let one loose. They let one, slip between their fingers. And so for them to be at the place that they are now with a team that they feel like can contend at any level with anybody in the country, this is going to be a fun matchup. I can't wait to see it.
All right, so at one point, and I think you retweeted this was hilarious. At one point, my girlfriend, who's, not football-minded, texts me on Saturday night and says, would you like to go get a martini? And I said, honey, first of all, not a chance. Not a chance in hell, okay? That's going to happen. And I'm watching 3 different games on 3 different devices right now, okay? I got an iPad, I got a phone, I got a computer, I've got a TV. Not a chance, not happening. And one of the games that was going on at the end of it that was quite exciting was Texas A&M and Arkansas. So is Texas A&M that vulnerable? Was it Arkansas's pissed off and back was against the wall? Combination of both. Talk to me about how you feel about Texas A&M, because Texas A&M and Mississippi State, that matchup as well, I think will be one that a lot of people want to watch.
I think Texas A&M has a very, very good team. I think they have a great offense. I think their defense applies pressure. I don't know if they're a super duper defense at linebacker and in the secondary. I think up front defensively they can cause a lot of problems. The verdict's still out on how well Texas A&M can really play on defense as a unit, how tough and physical they can play down the stretch against LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, a lot of these big games that they've got coming up. But that was a huge win for them to win it wasn't on the road, but it was in Arlington against Arkansas. Arkansas did have their backs against the wall. You knew they were going to play well. Arkansas is a balanced team. They showed that they can run and pass, so that presents a lot of problems for anybody. So just for them to come out of it with a win, and for Allen to play the way that he did, they've got the freshman receiver Christian Kirk, who's setting the world on fire, and we're going to hear a lot about him in the future. But Texas A&M is a really good football team.
All right, I'm interested in what your thoughts. I think you picked Kentucky. I have been high on Kentucky with Stoops and bringing back the football culture and really making that significant again. I know at Commonwealth Stadium on Saturdays, there's a lot of football fans there. It's a great game day atmosphere, but really increasing their football longevity, if you will, and panache against their basketball credibility. And I like Stoops, what he's doing, and I know you picked Kentucky last week.
I did, and I picked Florida. I don't want you to forget that. Kentucky's a pretty good football team. Patrick tells he's playing very well. Missouri is not playing very well offensively, so they're not going to put up a lot of points. Missouri play this week. They play South Carolina. South Carolina is hasn't played well all year, but I think South Carolina has a chance to knock them. I don't think Missouri's as good as they've been in the past. I don't even think they're close to being as good as they have been in the past. So, I felt like Kentucky was primed and ready to win that game, and they needed a big SEC win. So, it's fun to watch teams that over the past, over the past decade or so hadn't had a lot of a success. Have some success and win a ball game like that. So it's fun to have Kentucky in the mix.
Hey, and it's also fun to get the old ball coach a win. Doesn't matter if it's with Nunez or the quarterback that you originally started the season with. It's just better. Football is better, in my opinion, when the head ball coach is winning. Coach, Josh, I don't want him to ride off into the sunset a loser. Having the last part of his football legacy be a losing stretch. And so for them to get back on track, it was big. Probably not so much their opponent, but it was certainly a win at the end of the day.
Yeah, we all love Steve Spurrier. It's great for college football when he's winning. I think this is a big game for them. They go to Missouri this week. For him to be coming off a win against UCF in convincing fashion, I think it's a big week for them. As a team, he's got to get that team back on track. An SEC win would be big for them. I think they've got a great chance of winning on the road. He started 3 quarterbacks in the last 3 weeks. He's going to stick with Nunez, gives them a run-pass threat, which I think that he likes. That ability to use the quarterback in the in the run game a little bit. It's just going to be a fun ball game. It's going to be pretty evenly matched, I think. But if South Carolina can come up with a win, then I know Spurrier's going to be real thrilled about it.
You mentioned Chubb. You mentioned Fournette. I tweeted on Saturday, too. I wonder if Fournette, ever gets tired of running without anybody touching him. Just, running in an open field. And I think his yards, 244 yards, the most ever in LSU road game, 3rd most overall. And check this out, Josh, 172 came before contact with a defender. 172 yards before anybody touched him.
Isn't that crazy? He's gaining. He's gaining. I think he gained 10 yards or 9 or 10 yards of rush last game against Syracuse. And you're right that these holes are monstrous that he's running through. And then when those secondary guys try to come up and make tackles, he's such a force. He either makes you miss or he'll truck you. And so we saw Auburn 2 weeks ago hilariously try to tackle him. And they trying to jump on his neck. I mean, no one wants to be part of coming, going head on with him. So it's fun to watch him run because every time he touches the ball, whether it's a monster crease or a huge hole that the offensive line has provided for him, these secondary guys don't want any piece of this 6'3", 230-pound back.
Yeah. All right, Josh, final thoughts on this weekend. I do want to say this. We mentioned it. We started out talking about the show about, injuries and how precious this game is. I could not be more proud to be a human being and a fan of Coach Mark Richt and what they did for the Southern player, Devin Gales, who suffered an injury, catastrophic injury. Last thing we've been told is that he does have feeling in his upper body. He was moving his hands. But Mark Richt and Greg McGarity there and Claude Felton at UGA sent the plane for his parents. Coach Mark Richt and his staff went to visit the young man in the hospital. The Georgia Bulldogs sat and prayed in the locker room for this young man. In these moments, it makes you proud. I don't want to get all teary-eyed here, but it makes you proud to be a human being and proud to be a football fan. But what a classy move by the whole Georgia organization.
Yeah, they are a classy organization, and that's one of the reasons they're in the situation they're in and have such a great ball club and what a great football team they have. And it all starts from the top, and Mark Richt is one of the classiest guys you'll ever meet, and as you well know, he's a wonderful person. So, to see what he's done in his life with even his family and the way he handles his business and people, it's fun to watch a guy like that have success. But the University of Georgia did some amazing things this weekend with what happened there, and I wish Georgia the best because of, they've got a fan in me, and I'm an LSU Tiger. So, Mark Richt's done some amazing things. He's a family friend, and I just enjoy him and when he's doing well.
All right, I've got to tell our listeners a quick funny story about Mark Richt. So my best friend's parents have a ranch out in Jackson Hole, and they have an end of the season. Party, and so I was staying out there with my best guy friend, and his mom says, you stop watching TV, you got to get ready for this party, this cookout. And so I go get ready, and I come out, and there's this like 5'11", 5'10" statuesque blonde, beautiful, Josh, and his mom says, Rachel, meet Catherine. Catherine, meet Rachel. And his mom's a jokester, complete jokester. And she says to me from the kitchen, Rachel, how about them Georgia Bulldogs? And I said, oh, they're going to be fine as long as they can stay out of trouble. And she turns and says, Rachel, meet Catherine Richt. Catherine Richt, meet Rachel. Josh, all the blood ran out of my face.
That's funny.
I ran from this lady for the entire party, and finally she caught me over by the fireplace, and we sat on the hearth, and she sat down, and she said, Rachel, don't you think we hate it too? Don't you think we hate those, middle of the night phone calls that we don't pray before we answer that phone? So long story short, she was as gracious and as kind as she could be, and she said, it's okay. And, I call her a friend to this day, but it was open mouth, insert foot. Was absolutely mortified, Josh.
Just think if you had to babysit 100 players as a coach or as an organization trying to deal with all the testosterone and all the these kids are 18 to 22-year-old kids that are away from home for probably the first time in their lives. And so, to keep them in line, I was talking with some buddies this weekend about it. I mean, it's crazy that more things don't happen is to tell you the truth. So, yeah, I'm sure that, coaches, families, and assistant coaches, families, they have to deal with a lot of that because you've got your position coach and they have to deal with all their positional players, and then it goes up the ladder to the head coach, and they've got to deal with some of the major issues. But I wouldn't want to have to take on that responsibility of 100 plus players at a university and having to deal with all their crap. That's for sure.
Final thoughts on the weekend that was, Josh, as we enter week 5. Week 5. What the hey?
It's gonna be a great week coming up. Now we're really getting into the meat of the schedule, especially in the Southeastern Conference because of the parity and all the games. But we did have a good week 4. I think Florida pulled out a great win. McElwain couldn't be more excited. A&M's 4-0, and so now we've got 4 teams in the West that look really strong. I think Georgia can deliver a knockout punch to Bama, where if Bama loses, they're really out of contention in the SEC West for the first time in a long time. And when was the last time Alabama was out of contention for anything?
Yeah.
So, this week is going to be a fun week, and I can't wait to join you down there in Athens for the ball game. And we're going to have a hell of a good time, that's for sure.
We will. He's Josh Booty. I'm Rachel Baribeau. Make sure to check in Josh Booty 10, Rachel Baribeau on Twitter, Gridiron Now. Follow them on Twitter and bookmark Gridiron Now. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.